It's time to rock. Welcome, folks, to the channel. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our guest co-host. If you're familiar with the channel, folks, if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know who he is. But if you're not, it's my pleasure to introduce Jazz Thunder 50 Jim. Yay!
Morning, Jim. Welcome back. It's been weeks. Two.
Good to see you, Jim. Thank you for volunteering for the hot seat, because Rock Professor, we're missing somebody.
We're missing the mighty Brad, who is off gallivanting. Let's say no more than that. So, Brad, we hope you're having a great weekend, mate, and we miss you. We'll see you next week. But yes, have a lovely weekend. I hope it all goes well.
We know what he's doing, folks, and we really sincerely hope that he is having a good weekend, Rock Professor. But we're not going to say what he's doing, are we?
No, certainly not. Some things are best left unsaid, I feel.
Good to see you, though, too, Rock Professor. Fantastic, as usual. Love these weekly Rankin shows that we do. And in the green room, folks, the Rock Professor and Jim and I were having a little bit of a catch-up and a conversation about the show that we did yesterday, Simon.
Yes, indeed. Gone, in our world, gone viral. 1.7k views in 24 hours is pretty amazing. And the old subs have been going up as well. Look at that, gone over 9,570, and that's gone up about 100 in a week, hasn't it? Feels like a couple of weeks.
We
picked up loads,
a lot of subs yesterday. So Andrew, if you're watching, Andrew was the special guest, folks, that we had on yesterday on the channel. And I invite you, if you're not a Van Halen fan, to at least go and have a look if you're interested in the mechanics of what we're doing here on the channel. Halfway through yesterday's stream, we managed to get a guy on that had some interesting information regarding the Van Halen community. We won't repeat it here. If you're interested, go and watch it. But Rock Professor and Jim, very articulate young fellow, knew a little bit about what was going on, Simon, and confirmed that there's a ton of Van Halen footage out there, Simon.
Somewhere in vaults. Yeah, but it was a great show, and and lots of useful, if you're a Van Halen fan, lots of useful stuff there, and lots of great conversation about the Donington '84 stuff as well. That was really cool.
So can I do a channel boast? Am I allowed to do that?
Yes.
On our channel?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So we were the first channel to break the news on the Van Halen Sammy Hagar box set. We were the first channel to do that. And we were the first channel to get the exclusive information on the behind the scenes of the Donington Castle footage and the controversy behind it, because Andrew this week is going to jump on about 3 or 4 other Van Halen shows and repeat what he said on our channel yesterday. So for a small part of the YouTube world, Simon and Jim and everybody in the chat, it's a little bit of an achievement for what we do here. So thank you to everyone involved in that. Thank you to Jim. Thank you to John yesterday. And thank you to Les Paul as well.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. The Van Halen crew did a great job as ever. Fantastic. But they are, and very knowledgeable and things.
Awesome. Okay, so that's enough back patting, slapping each other on the back, Jim. We're not used to that often. We don't do that a lot.
Stop with the self-regarding nonsense.
Yeah,
Walton, and let's get on with the show.
Rock Professor, you've got some other news that you want to share and remind us of, and Jim's got something as well that he wants to say before we kick the show off.
Yeah, so it is the anniversary of the death of Stevie Ray Vaughan, one of the pillars of the British Electric Blues show. He's not British, but he's Electric Blues for sure. And I know we're all fans here, so yes, it's as a mark of respect to the great Stevie Ray Vaughan that we mark that anniversary. Jim?
Yeah, and also sad news about Bernie Marsden passing away. Great guitarist, most famously known for his work in Whitesnake, but was also in the band UFO, as well as Pace, Ashton and Lord as well. Interestingly, in terms of kind of some blues music, put out a couple of really nice blues solo albums in the last couple of years.
Yes.
One called Kings, and the other called Chess. The Kings one is obviously kind of demonstrating his love of the three kings, Albert, Freddie, and BB. So really sad to hear that news about Bernie. By all accounts, a really lovely fellow, really nice guy.
I met him briefly. I was trying to find it. I got a bit of footage of it, but we went to see someone I know called Ariel Posen, the Canadian guitarist, singer-songwriter, in a small pub in Chippenham. Me and my friend Paul, and so Ariel was playing. It must be before the pandemic, so 4 or 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and he was being supported by Chris Buck's band, Buck and Evans. They were just doing a little acoustic set, but Bernie turned up with the Beast, and they did a kind of jam at the end. Him, Ariel, and Chris did a jam at the end and stuff, and which was great. But I have got some footage of it, and man alive, that guitar, the sound of that guitar is something else. I tell you, it's enormous.
Awesome.
Played a chord on that, and it just But yeah, got to meet him after. Smashing bloke, and lots of people. He was, very happy for people to come and have a photograph with the Beast and stuff. So yeah, nice bloke. So sad loss to the music community, Bernie.
Very, very sad loss. I, in fact, only finished reading his book at the beginning of the year. So on my book review segment on the channel, folks, I'll probably do that within the next couple of weeks. And Jim, I got to remind you too that he did a wonderful blues album in the mid-90s. The Fleetwood Mac, his cover of Blues and Green, or Green and Blues or something. If you manage to get hold of that, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So yes, so
you want to do a shout out, Rock Professor? We've got drops here as well.
Yes, so I'll do the team. So good morning, Phil Byers. Good morning, Phil. Arvin as well. Good morning, Arvin. Nice to see you. I know it's late in the States. Jonas Halper. Good morning, Jonas. We've got Ellen, Tom. Good morning, Ellen. Hope you're well.
Hey,
Thanks
Ellen.
for joining. Good to see you. Holly as well. Morning, Holly. Got the mug.
Hey, Holly.
Yes. Into service. Stole it back from my children and back into service. We've got Drops Family Garden and Gret Zeppelin as well. Good morning, Gret and Drops. Nice to see you guys. I think that's hopefully that's everybody. Got everybody so far. 12 people watching. So say hello if you're watching and haven't yet, and I'll say hello back. That's fantastic. Good to see you all.
Brilliant, and thank you all, everybody, as well that you might be watching on replay. Again, we're mindful that we do get some views on our channel afterwards, so we'd like to acknowledge you as well. If you do watch on a replay, help the channel. Just leave a nice comment and say, hey. If you can just like leave a comment and a thumbs up as well. Great that you're watching, but a thumbs up and a comment, and especially if you want to be an insider If you want to find out, we've got some videos behind the scenes that I've got here for the channel members. If you want to become a channel member to help the channel so that we can produce some videos for you guys moving forward and some other bits and pieces, if you become a channel member, that would be grateful and would be really, really happy to get your support that way as well. Right, Simon, I think I've finished my job.
Your job hasn't even started yet. You can't knock off now. 10 minutes in, I think I'll knock off now, put my feet on the desk, light up a big cigar and relax. Honestly, what do you think this is? So this week we are discussing this record. I dug it out of my record cupboard. So
the Brown
band,
album.
The Brown album. The band, the second album by the band. There's some fantastic photographs of them playing and stuff on the inside. Really cool. And there's a photograph on the back as well that's pretty cool. So them in the them set up. We'll talk about some of that stuff in a bit. But so yeah, I'm really in honor of Robbie Robertson, the passing of Robbie Robertson, who died a couple of weeks ago. And I realised that we've not done a band album before on the show, so we're going in big with their second album. The first one, Music from the Big Pink, had been made a year or so earlier, and came off the back of playing the Music from the Big Pink as a house in Woodstock, where they hung out with Bob Dylan and did quite a lot of the songs that were on the Basement tapes. So, as with quite a lot of these things, all roads lead to Bob Dylan and his the DNA of what he did with the Basement tapes and them setting up in a room and all playing together, and just knocking songs out. I think certainly follows through into Music from the Big Pink, clearly the same place, but also into this album as well. Although it's not recorded in in a house in Woodstock. It's recorded in Sammy Davis's Jr.'s house in LA. It's somehow seemingly odds with its vibe, with what it's about, and this thing. The other interesting thing is that clearly it's a band about America made by Canadians, which is interesting. We can get to that as a point of view later on. So I thought I'd just do a very brief history of the band in case people know. So they were Canadian Americans except for Levon Helm, who's an American, but the rest of them they formed in Toronto in 1967, basically. But between 1958 and 1963, they were known as the Hawks, and they backed the great Canadian rockabilly singer Ronnie Hawkins. And from the mid 60s, they gained recognition backing Bob Dylan as well on his famous 66 tour, where every single gig was booed. The second half was booed when they went electric, in an extraordinary display. I don't think ever really matched by of protest and against what an artist was doing. Extraordinary. I can't imagine going on stage every night and being booed for what you do and carrying on. Shows a certain single-mindedness. But, so and then in '68 they recorded Music from the Big Pink, their first solo album, having because Bob had his motorcycle accident. Yes, I think it's agreed that there was an accident. The severity of it is, I think, up for discussion. And actually, I think Bob used it as an excuse to get out of his wild and crazy life and commitments that he had coming up, and just to stop, really. But so and then they did the Basement tapes, Music from the Big Pink. So this is from 1969. As recorded, as I said, in set up in the pool house of a house owned by Sammy Davis Jr., previously owned by Judy Garland as well. So they set up in his house. They all lived there as well. Set up the rooms and got some carpenters to come in and put some deaden the room off and things, and but set up. So basically, you can tell what sort of record it's going to be. They're all going to be in a room together. They're all going to be playing together. There's going to be that musical interaction that I think is really important in making records, and I think that's why one of the reasons why records from this era are so great is because people sat in rooms together and played. You know, you didn't build it up from from scratch. Co-produced by with John Simon, who did the first one as well. He's a well-known producer, did lots of things, but engineered very much by Robert Robertson, who was John Simon said was hungry for knowledge, and I showed him how to make it out from a technical point of view. So it's I know three of the tracks were recorded at the Hit Factory in New York City, but for the majority of it was recorded in the house in LA. So yeah, just a quick piece of background. Clearly, there's trillions of stuff on the internet if you want to go and dig into it. I've dug quite a lot this week with some art, a couple of really good essays I found, and also this book as well. Have you read this? This is I hope to do a review of it. Really, on the Andrew's 5-minute reviews. I don't know if you read it, Andrew. There's Lee Von Helm biography. Just Wheels on Fire. Excellent, great stuff. Got some fantastic pictures in it, and but yeah, tells Levon's side of the story. You'll be surprised, and as with many bands, there's a story to be told of missed opportunities. Where's the money, and why is he living in a house on the hill and I'm living in a shack? That's hardly ever been said before in rock and roll. Okay, so that's quick overview and a quick piece of background from the record. I hope that's, as I say, there's loads of stuff if you want to go and delve for it. So I think if I don't know, guys, do you want to say when you first came across this record? That's what I normally, one of our things is. Jim, when did you first come across it? When did you first hear it?
Well, not at the time, because I think I was about 9 years old. So I came back on it. I think I probably didn't get really an awareness of the band until The Last Waltz, to be honest, when that came out. I'd kind of obviously read about The Last Waltz before the film appeared. I went to see that in the cinema, and that was just great. Just seeing all these people that were kind of guests on that kind of particular show, and then took an interest in acquiring some of the music after that. I bought the Last Waltz soundtrack first, I think, and then kind of wound back a bit. And the ones that, this I think is probably the masterpiece in terms of their kind of recorded production.
Yeah.
So kind of got this and music from the Big Pink, kind of a couple of the others as well. So yeah, it was kind of a retrospective kind of journey for me. I do remember when I was just kind of starting at uni and stuff, and there were some guys would have the record and talk about it, and later on, a guy I know I worked with said, I'd remember picking the Brown album up in a bargain bin for about 50 pence. He said it's one of the best records I bought, So I think people just discovered this different ways, But that was me, a retrospective journey. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I'll never forget getting introduced to this album. I used to work with some people, and it was a woman who told me to go and check that album out. And I remember it specifically. We're talking about music, and the band. She was talking about this band called The Band. And I knew Simon and Jim who the band was. I knew the band. When she said that, and didn't know any of the albums. When she said that they had this film called The Last Waltz, I remember that. I remember, so this is the late 80s, Jim. This is the late 80s when I'm a really, really young guy. And I'm pretty sure she gave me a cassette tape of this to go and listen to. Now I'm listening to something else completely different, Jim, at the time, and when I'm listening to this, it was just such a contrast. It blew me away. I wasn't I wasn't completely, what's the word, new to this kind of music, because country music was always played in our house when I was growing up, Simon. And I was a fan of Neil Young, and I was a fan of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. So listening to this kind of music wasn't strange to me. But what really got me, Jim, listening to the first 3 or 4 tracks in this, I think I cried. I think I had, it was doing something completely different than Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, happy. This vibrant sound, this joyousness going on, and this music was about everyday kind of life. And then obviously we went on and discovered actually it was, and then you've got the advent of, reading biographies and talking to other people, Simon, and then YouTube coming along, and it sort of backs it all up. Masterpiece of an album. This album's had a huge influence on my life, Simon and Jim, so I'm glad that we're going to spend some time talking about it. I could take up the whole show talking about it, but I'll let you kick off the first track, Simon.
Yeah. I think I first came across it just before we start. I worked in a record shop from 79 to 82, and I knew the weight, and I knew Up on Crooked, because they used to get played on the radio here. You'd hear them on the radio in the early 70s for sure, but I never really investigated the albums until sort of when I worked in the record shop. And my old friend Gerard, who guided me in so many things, and Bob Dylan not least, but clearly also the band. So I think he would have guided me towards these albums, saying these albums are brilliant. You need to, and I can remember sitting around in his house and listening to all this stuff, and being amazed, because he got Bob Dylan bootlegs and all sorts of stuff. But amazing. So thank you to Gerard for many things, including including the band. But yes, and you're right. It's an extraordinary record, isn't it? It's an extraordinary contrast to almost everything else, really. So the first track is Across the Great Divide, which is like a lot of these songs, Ross, here, is written by Robert Robertson. I think he wrote, there's some arguments about, and I think this is, it's a classic thing, he comes with a song that he's written, and then they all play it, and all of a sudden it becomes the band. And at what point is, say, the drumming of Levon Helm, and clearly an integral part of the song, at what point is that a creative, part of the creative process, and develops the song and should be worthy of a songwriting credit? These and other those questions have occupied bands all over the place. But so I think, we'll go with what the official history is. So the song is about the singer having a row with his wife and wanting to know where she hid the gun, which is quite funny. But it as an opening song, it starts off with that kind of quite somber kind of piano, horns, and you think, oh, what's happening here? Because clearly, if you go back to 1969, that it's actually not, it's not really the same as Andrew, as you've just said. It's not, the sound of it is different already. There's kind of that kind of, I don't know, difficult to describe. It's not a Stax horn section, is it? It's not that kind of upbeat, bap 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 horn section interpolating into a song with stabs and things. This is much more kind of somber, but it kind of, after that initial, it kind of picks up into a kind of mid-tempo thing, and you've got drums and organ and bass coming. I noticed the piano is a very kind of Fats Domino kind of in the background. That'll be Richard Emmanuel playing this. I think, and again, those horns are kind of much more, I think, New Orleans than they are 60s soul things. They're not really soul. Although this record has some soul stuff in it, it's not really a soul song, and they don't really have soul. I think one of the things is that John Simon could play the tuba, but the others could only play very rudimentary trumpet, saxophone, and trumpet and things. So they went with what they had, in the band. So that kind of slightly rough, slightly off kilter is because they actually weren't that good at them. But it contributes to the vibe. It contributes to the feel of the song. It contributes to its kind of, I'd say, kind of slightly. The whole album has a slightly, on the surface, kind of amateurish, slightly off, feel, which is, ideal for the songs, ideal for the things, and not true because they're fantastic musicians. But on an initial listen, you could probably think that they were a bit like that. I think we should make mention of the harmonies as well. The way that the three singers sing together is amazing, not like anybody else, and they kind of move in and out. There's the lead vocalist. Sometimes somebody will be a bit further forward than that. It's and you'll get the idea. This is that the guitar is very much in the background on this record. It's not. There are some. We'll get to the cooler, guitar-y bits later, but for the most part, there's not a huge amount of, certainly no wild and crazy guitar. I mean, because remember, this is the age of the virtuoso, isn't it? Page, Hendrix, Clapton, Jeff Beck, Jerry Garcia, and you name them. They're all out there, playing their asses off, and this is a completely opposite to that. Just the guitar sits in, chords, little licks, little embellishments, little pieces of color, but is not up the front. And clearly, this is what attracted Eric Clapton, to join Delaney and Bonnie, and also George Harrison found very attractive as well. So I like the brass solo as well. I think that's really interesting and really different. Not a guitar solo. Not really in keeping with anything that's going on, and quite a despite the somber kind of beginning, actually quite a jaunty, upbeat opening number. I'm giving this a 10. I think it's a great opening track. Sets the tone for the album, and I'm all, me, I'm all about setting the tone. What does it sound like? What's it? Gretch, that'll be telling. But yes, I'm giving this a 10. A great start, and as it sets the tone for the album as a whole and what it's about. Tim.
Yeah, I mean, how do you add to that? That's a brilliant sort of summation, really. I think this followed in that kind of blueprint of music of the Big Pink, not starting with a kind of fast, kind of upbeat number. Big Pink started up with Tears of Rage, and it was a very slow kind of somber kind of start to an album. So it kind of sets out a very different course to what you normally expect kicking off a record. And it sort of sounds like when you put this record on, it's sort of like going back in time in a way. It's like it's not this kind of modern sound. It's got these instruments in it, and just played at the, and as you say, absolutely the accent here is on the song, not on the players, not on the playing. It's on that kind of everyone combining for the music. So yeah, it's a great track. It kind of pulls you in, and it kind of sets an atmosphere for the music. The pace of it breathes. So yeah, it's great. So definitely, I would say 9 out of 10 for me. A good start to the album. It makes you curious about what's going to come next. Really, that's a really good thing in a record, isn't it? That you don't think, oh yeah, that's predictable. That's what I thought it was going to start like. So it just kind of pulls you in, and you're eager to kind of hear more. That's a good way to have your first track on a record, wanting people to want more from the get-go. So that's me. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, guys. You guys are awesome. And thank you too, people, for your ranks in the tracks as well. We see Alan has kicked off the show with the first ranking. Thank you, Alan. I've got to agree with the Rock Professor. What's really interesting is this band's deliberately sidestepped soul as an influence with the horns. And we're going to talk about that probably a little bit more when we go through to talk about some of the other songs, because they are specifically, being influenced by the South. No doubt about it. Levon Helm's influence on this album is huge. So it's only natural that they're going to have that New Orleans kind of marching drone that the Rock Professor spoke about, which gives it that offbeat kind of character. You can't make that up. Tom Petty talks about this. If you're from the South, you can't fake it. And so Levon Helm gives it that credibility. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the North Americans, the Canadians, and their influence on this album too. A little bit more, I'm sure. I've got a reason, a conclusion, why they are so important to this. And we can talk about this at the end, Simon. I'm sure you have, and I'm sure Jim has. On why these Canadians work with this album and this band. Love Danko's bass on this track, and Richard's vocals, that echo that he has in his vocals, is just remarkable, isn't it? I love the tone of Richard's voice. And again, I'm going to back up the Rock Professor here with the horns. It's not that bright horn. It's not that funky horn. It's not that Rolling Stone, Jim Price, Bobby Keys kind of horns, Jim, which is happening at that same time. It's got their own thing. And I'm going to say it's that kind of thing that Jim mentioned in his summation that's trying to draw you in. I think it's that kind of wobbliness from that perspective. If you're listening to this in 1969, Jim, you go, what's going on here? Yeah. So good points from my co-hosts. I'm going to agree with Jim. I'm going to agree with Alan. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. Rock Professor, never a skip.
No, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I take up your point about what does it sound like in 1980? It sounded even more out of place. Like, really? I mean, that kind of timeless kind of quality to it that it has, and that kind of, and clearly this is the advent of it, and clearly this is the roots of Americana, isn't it? This is where one feels that all Americana goes back to this record, or the band, the early, big in this, and I think to the Basement Tapes as well as the kind of that's the way the DNA of it all started. But yes, an extraordinary, great start, and as I say, it's the second track is Rag Mama Rag, which is sung by Levon Helm, or that's written by Robbie Robertson. I think, again, this is one of the tracks where Levon Helm claimed later that the song was a group effort, which I think is, I bring a song which I've just written on acoustic guitar, and then the band shape it and, into the song that it is. And I think it's probably, that creative process is what bands argue about, really, isn't it? I put this brilliant bass line on it that made it what it is. It's a bit like the Herbie Flowers thing on Walk on the Wild Side, isn't it? Walk on the Wild Side is made by Herbie Flowers' his bass line, but he only ever got, I think he might have got later on, but initially only got a session fee for it, 30 quid, and a pie kind of thing, cup of tea, and yet that bass line completely makes the record into what it is. So I think so. The thing we should say is that they initially attempted to record it in a straightforward manner, but it didn't sound right to Robertson. So Levon Helm moved to play mandolin, Richard Manuel played drums, bassist Rick Danko played fiddle, and John Simon played tuba, which is amazing. Kind of like, I'll tell you what, guys, we'll just shuffle around. And Garth Hudson played upright acoustic piano in a ragtime fashion. So it starts off with the fiddle, Rick Danko playing the fiddle with that opening motif and the mandolin. Is that the mandolin? Is that the one you did on the show? Yes, that's right. You're playing a mandolin the other day. That's very cool. Haven't seen that. Andrew does a little instrumental version. Did you sing a bit? I think you might have even sung a bit. I can't remember. Anyway, of this just on mandolin, which is very good as a lead in. So you've got a fiddle and you've got with the mandolin as well. Again, setting the scene, bringing in new instruments. We've got a mandolin and we've got a fiddle now, so we're definitely in that kind of country Appalachian kind of bluegrassy type, area. One feels, and you've got those kind of, then the drums come in with the piano again, a kind of slightly off kilter drums, that they're kind of very simple, kind of, but actually they give it a swing, they give it a, they give it a different vibe to if a proper professional drummer was actually playing it, and it kind of suits the vibe, it suits where the band is. I like the fact that it's got it doesn't have a bass on it, so the tuba fills in for the bass. Is that's the bass part, and that gives it a completely different vibe too. Got a nice barroom piano as well that intertwines with the guitar, and I think we could say this quite a lot, that intertwining of instruments where the instruments play the same thing quite a lot and they intertwine quite tightly together so that they fit. There's no kind of big solo and stuff, and great singing as well. A great quite a jaunty upbeat feel to this. This is quite a jolly tune, and has a kind of crazy piano to end. I give this a 9 out of 10. I've sung this all for 40 years. You can rag all over my house, kind of, what's it there? Was it dog eat dog and cat eat mouse? You can rag my mom. That comes to me all the time, that little cut thing. So for that, it gets a 9 out of 10 from me, and never a skip. Great second track. Tim,
Good score.
Yeah, I think it's got great velocity, hasn't it? It's just like something that might have been played at a barn
great
dance
word.
or something.
Yeah.
Real energy and drive, and great singing, and it just makes you smile when you hear this song. You can't help but tap your toe and try and kind of join in with it. It's fantastic, and I think you talk about the drumming and Richard drumming, and I think that that just exchange of the musicians just adds something here, and I quite like it when bands have other people that can play the drums. I remember somebody asked John Lennon if Ringo was the best drummer in the world, and he said he's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. And it might be applicable here, that Richard had some swing about him when he played the drums. I did read that Levon Helm had managed to found this really old-fashioned set of drums with wooden rims, and
that's right. In a junk shop or something.
And great cymbals. And I think Robbie Robertson said you can hear the wood in this record. There's some sort of authentic tone and resonance to the performances that's different from just what everyone else was using. So for me, this is just a highly enjoyable song, and I would go 9.5 out of 10. Just really, really enjoy the track. Never played it, and would never skip it, but would always look forward to that. And I think it just puts a bit more drive into the record following the first song. So it just lifts it up a gear or two. Great stuff.
For sure.
Andrew.
Look, I agree with what Holly's saying here in the chat, folks. She's saying piano is rocking along on this one, and that's my note here. The keys are the star here. Garth is the star on this track. I love it. I think Garth is just an amazing musician. Want to just sort of continue what the Rock Professor said and Jim said, folks. If you're not aware of this, every member of this band were multi-instrumentalists. So they could play a lot of instruments. They just weren't guitar players or keyboard players. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit more when we go on to some of the other songs, when you find out what the instruments are. Got some pics too of some of the instruments, some of the unusual instruments that Garth especially plays too for half-time. So keep an eye out for that, folks. Don't go and make a cup of tea at half-time. You want to look at these pics. I love the fact that they've got that swing going on here. And I'll continue the conversation if one of my other co-hosts don't, but I'll back them up if they mention it a little bit more later on when we talk about Levon Helm and his role and the significance that he had as a drummer and his contribution that gave it that kind of wobbliness that we've mentioned earlier on the first track that sort of permeates this album. That southern sting is what I call it. Look, Jim, I'm not going to give it a half. I'm just going to give it a 9. I'm not going to. I'm not going to be tricky.
Oh, Trixie, eh?
But the keys for me clearly on this one, were the keys, Simon. When I first heard it, when I was a young fella back in the 86, 87, the keys were the thing that resonated in my ears. I needed to know more. It hooked me in. I was hooked by the second song, Jim. 9.5 out of 10. No, 9. 9 out of 10.
A little Trixie there.
Look at that, contradicting himself in a single sentence. Boom.
I was just doing that to see if you guys were listening. That's all.
Yeah. Good. Yes. Oh, we were listening. All right. He's trying to sneak it past us, Jim. That's what I reckon. Yeah, cool. Okay, excellent. So, the third track is "The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down." Now, I think that this is a song written by Robbie Robertson. Again, he spent about 8 months working on it, and he said he had the music to the song in his head and would play the chords over and over on the piano, but had no idea. Basically, Levon took him to his home in Arkansas and kind of showed him around, and kind of, he got a vibe of there, the South, and he said that Levon Helm took him to a library so he could research the history and the geography of the Civil War, and that's what the lyrics are about. They're about the American Civil War, and they portray the sufferings of the protagonist, Virgil Caine, a poor white Southerner, who fought for the Confederate States of America and in the Civil War. I think there's a certain, I am going to address it. There's a certain amount of ambiguity around this song and about its relationship with the Confederate States and Dixie and things that these days are not considered very considered politically to be quite off color, if I may put it like that. So I think it's worth bearing in mind. I don't think that it's really about that. It's about a poor white Southern soldier who's left as a farmer, poor, and kind of has to fight his way through it. More than I think it's about a glorification of the South or the Confederate States. But I mean, it's that opening stanza that it has is still one of the great opening stanzas, surely, of any song. Virgil Caine is the name, and I served on the Danville train till Stoneman's cavalry came and tore up the tracks again. In the winter of '65, we were hungry, just barely alive. By May the 10th, Richmond had fell. It's time I remember oh so well. That's just brilliant. That's just sets a scene, gives you a feel, a vibe of sort of a and I never fail to be thrilled when I hear that those first 4 lines sung by Levon Helm, who is the man who should sing this song, because that's where he comes from. It's in his soul and in his blood. It's and I think that Ralph Gleason, the critic in Rolling Stone, said, "Nothing I have read has brought home the overwhelming human sense of history that this song does. It's a remarkable song, the rhythmic structure, the voice of Levon, and the bass line with the drums, accents, and then the heavy, close harmony of Levon, Richardson, Rick in the theme make it seem impossible this isn't some traditional material handed down from father to son straight from that winter of 1865. It has the ring of truth and a whole aura of authenticity." I couldn't have put it better myself. I'm nowhere near Ralph Gleason, but as I say, it's fitting that Levon took the lead vocals, as he's from Arkansas, and it's got that ascending piano thing to start with, sets the tone, sets the key to the song, and the vocals, I think, are just fantastic. They have a soul, they have a feel to them that is just amazing. But in a kind of, I don't know, Americana folk kind of setting more than a rock setting, really, in many ways. You've got just bass, acoustic guitar. There's no electric guitar. It's piano. As I've said, the vocals tell of the Virgil Caine, a soldier who's resigned to a downtrodden life as a poor farmer. So I'll pick out a few things. Great harmony singing, fantastic harmony singing. When they sing The Night the Girl Would Down, the way that they come in and out, and it's not always Levon Helm at the front. I think there's that lonesome, ghostly harmonica that plays in the background as well as the horn as well that plays in the background. It gives it a kind of mournful, kind of melancholy vibe, sepia tinted vibe to it. It's a great song. It's one of the great songs. It's a 10 out of 10. Never a skip from me. Jim.
Thanks, Simon. Kind of agree with that. When we did the introductions and talking about how we encountered the album or found out about the band, I was talking about The Last Waltz, and that was really when I encountered the band. But I heard this song well before that. You might remember this, Simon, but I did hear this song in the 70s. And I'm saying this, there used to be these albums called Top of the Pops, and they weren't original artists that did them.
That's right.
They were kind of, I guess, session musicians that were paid a fee, and they'd come out and they'd have 12 or 13 songs taken from the charts at the time. So you went out and bought these for about 50p, and I did buy one of these. So it must have been 70 or 71, and because that was the cheapest way that you could get the stuff. It was even before the time where you got the cassettes and you recorded the songs off the radio. So I remember hearing it. It was on one of those. There was a version of it.
Wow.
And it was pretty good. I mean, it was obviously not as good as the band. It was obviously rushed off really quickly. But I got the whole story of the song. This is a real story song, and as you say, it portrays that kind of time, and that story kind of pulls you in. So when I heard this, I think it is great. And I remember reading in or seeing, I think there's a clip on the band that kind of, and Robbie was talking about when he was kind of writing some of these songs, albeit just what you've just said about hooking up with Levon and getting the history, but he was in his house and his wife Dominique had just had a baby, so he was kind of playing the piano really. He said a lot of the music he was playing it really quietly because it was like you mustn't wake the baby up. So he's just very quietly playing the piano and kind of sort of writing the songs really. So, but I mean, just to be able to write something that is brought to given huge amounts more authenticity by Levon singing, it's just amazing to be that kind of writer that can produce a piece of work like that. So for me, it's 10 out of 10. Agree totally, no quibble. It's an absolutely astonishing song, and it kind of resonates with the heart. The kind of a country torn apart by war. Whatever the reasons, any kind of war, ordinary people are affected badly by it. And people that make the money out of the wars are the people that make the guns and the bullets and everything. So that's what really goes on there. But fantastic song, Andrew.
Yeah, I've got to tag off a little bit of what Jim said there, folks. Where do I start? Levon is just perfect on this song. It's a remarkable legacy that he's left us with the vocals on this song. It sent shivers up my spine when I actually first listened, Jim, to the lyrics, and Simon, that you eloquently quoted. It was a radio song when I was a young fella, and I never paid much attention to it. It's much like the Layla story that I spoke about when we did the Derek and the Dominoes thing. You hear this thing on the background happening, but it's not until you actually concentrate, Jim, and listen to it and start absorbing actually what they're trying to communicate through the song that it has that connection. And, for me, when I understood that, it sent shivers down my spine. The images in my mind when I heard the song almost became real. You know, I loved historical novels. You know, I loved the South. I don't care, Simon, if it's a song about the Confederacy, because the Confederacy is a historical fact. It happened. You know, if it is a tribute to the Confederacy, or it mentions southern people who existed. You know, it's a fact. It's just what it is, and you take from that what you want, folks. It's the authenticity, Jim, that you spoke about. That's eerie in the song. It's something that I can't describe in words. All I can say, Simon, is go and listen to this song. And there's a couple of other tracks on this album too that you have to go and listen to, but this is definitely one of them. Huge impact on my life, Simon, this song. It helped develop my love for music, this song, Jim. And Garth's contribution with the melodica and the slide trumpet, and we'll show you what those instruments are on this track. It's just remarkable. Garth is just a giant, wasn't it? Or isn't he? Because he's still alive. Garth's a giant.
He is. Who'd have bet on the oldest member of the band being the last one alive? It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's extraordinary. And there's a point too that I was going to mention that our friend from the north already did in the chat. You know, that Garth learnt to play this kind of somber, this melancholy music because he was, playing in a funeral home. So, playing behind the beat, Jim.
Yeah.
Which is really important when you're playing funeral music. Is something that's real. And obviously Garth contributed that to the band. So thank you, Arvin, for pointing that out for us. It was on the notes. This is my first Brad score. This is one of my top 3 band songs ever, Simon. It's a song I'd like them to play at my funeral.
Interesting, yeah, that's cool. That's fantastic. So, I'm just to pick up your points about the. I mean, in many ways, I think it's actually an anti-war song. I think that if you take the context of when it was written, Vietnam War and all of that. It's not, it's not on the surface. It isn't about that, but actually, it is about, as Jim said, the effect of war on, individuals, on people who get left after wars with, not very much. And so, to me, that's what it's about more than time. But I thought I'd talk about the South bit because it is it is something that is a part of the song, and needs to be talked about. So anyway, the the next track 4, is "When You Awake," which is a ballad. First one, really, of a slow song, and it's kind of about, I think, it's about passing on. The song is Robertson said that the song is about someone who passes something on to you and you pass it on to somebody else. Those little pearls of wisdom about, that, of life, like be careful where you step and watch what you eat kind of thing. That all these things. But, I think it's about things. So Rick Danko sings the lead vocal and Richard Manuel plays drums. Again, they're kind of swapping around on this. Robbie Robertson plays kind of Merle Travis sounding riffs on guitar. Levon Helm plays the acoustic guitar. Garth Hudson and Richard Manuel play organ and drums, respectively, in a kind of ragtime style. So it's, Robertson has said that the guitar parts are made up of a combination of notes who are not real chords. As a result, the melody didn't sound good when translated to piano, which is why Manuel, normally the group's pianist, moved to drums. Moved it around. But as I've said, it's a ballad, and they swap instruments. So the acoustic plays with the accordion, just kind of click six to start, and then you've got the sort of, the vocals again over that kind of swing time beat that Richard Manuel kind of off kilter, kind of sort of in one sense kind of ramshackle, quite simple drums, but they have a vibe and they have a swing to them that brings something unique to this song. And I think that that's really important if you're doing these things, and they kept it within a band, and it's not somebody else, they just swapped it around. Yeah, it's a fine song. I gave this 8 out of 10. Never a skip. Absolutely not. It's a contrast to what we've had before, with the kind of first ballad of the album. So contrast, which is good. Jim.
Yeah, I kind of never quite knew kind of what to make of this song. It was interesting. You kind of I don't have the LP. I've got a kind of CD version, and on the back cover it's got Robbie as the writer of all the songs. But when you go into the kind of booklet, there are some songs that are now listed as co-writes, and this is one of them, which is Richard Manuel and Robbie Robertson. And then
Jim, this has got this on here. This has got written by Richard Manuel and Robbie Robertson.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's
even
fine.
on they're not all of them are just to Robbie Robertson.
Right. Okay. Well, on the back of the CD, they were all credited to Robbie, but so there's a few here. Whispering Pines coming up, and Jemima Surrender. Well, Whispering Pines is Manuel Robertson, and Helm is Jemima Surrender, and there's another one, I think. No, there isn't. So so kind of maybe some change into the attribution for some of these songs over time. Maybe there's been some change there. I think what you were talking about, this sounds like a song where there was a kind of process going on where, maybe different people were kind of contributing. It kind of sounded to me a little bit like two songs put together. I don't know. I just could never quite get my head around it. So I would say I like it. I just I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I think for me, I wouldn't necessarily skip anything on this record, but 7 out of 10 for me. Andrew, I'll hand to you.
Yeah, look, I agree where you're coming from, Jim, and I went to Mr. Wikipedia to get a little bit of information on this track too, because it's not one that they talk about in the books and articles I've read, Jim. So if in doubt, go and see what Mr. Wikipedia says. And Mr. Wikipedia's got a little bit of interesting information on it that it wasn't received well at the time, according to whoever wrote that article. And I kind of agree with that. I agree with you though, Jim. It suits the album. It suits the mood of the album, Rock Professor, and we're all about that, aren't we? We understand exactly what's going on with these guys, and the way that they put these songs too on this track is very, very important. And we'll probably talk about that in the conclusion, because after they drove all Dixie down, what are you going to have after that, Simon? Not your next best song.
No.
Which is what we're going to be talking about, eh? So it's going to be the filler song, the song that the tearaway song that you made a thing there about John Lennon before, Jim. Let's make another John Lennon thing here. It was just a song, just a throwaway song, and he's talking about Can't Buy Me Love or Love Me Do, or Come Together. Yeah, it was just a throwaway. I think, Jim, this is one of those opportunities for them to just throw a song in there that they didn't want to sort of work a little bit more on. What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that, Simon.
No, absolutely. And you've got to have the contrast. You've got to have the ups and downs, and that you can't all be just here. This isn't going to work as an album.
You got to have the undulations. You got to have the troughs and the highs. Jim,
do that.
I'm not copying you, but there's my 7.
Yeah.
There's my 7 out of 10. We're on the money.
Yeah.
He's definitely copying you, Jim. with he's writing it down to off camera. He's like,
Oh, here
just
we
put in
go.
7.
So cynical for someone so young.
So
look, I just need to make one little point here, Simon, before you get into the next song. Drops, we love you, bro. We love you. You've been here on our channel for a long, long time, and you know, you talk about some really cool stuff. We know that, but
he's going mad this morning.
yeah. Can I just ask you, let the people in the chat enjoy the show, please, and then everyone will be happy. Thank you, Drops. I don't want to growl you. No one's growling you, but we'll let September the 17th worry about September the 17th, and we'll just talk about the band, if that's okay.
Easy, Tiger. Yes. Onward, ever onward. So, yes. So the next track, another bona fide classic, I would say, Up on Cripple Creek, which is, I think, one of the highlights of this record. You know, it's apparently Robert Robertson had some ideas for it, basic ideas, when we were based in Woodstock making music for the Big Pink, and then then they went to Hawaii, and I think the pieces and ideas coming from that traveling process of Hawaii sparked the idea about a man who just drives these trucks across the whole country. So, and of course, I'm going to say it before my co-host say it. It's notable for the first appearance of a Hohner clavinet being played with a wah-wah pedal. You know, I think lots of people have said this, pre-Superstition. You know, Stevie Wonder's Superstition, very much that kind of same sound, but I think 3 years beforehand. It's an amazing kind of funk feel to the song. We'll get to that in a minute. So, as I've said, it draws upon, you know, the American South, American rock, blues, and some bluegrass and country mixed in with that kind of amazing funky clavinet sound. And is sung from the point of view of a truck driver who goes to Lake Charles, Louisiana, to stay with a local girl, Bessie, with whom he has history. So it's another one of those story songs that that this album is you know, proliferated with, and you know, it's a great song. I think that recorded in the Hit Factory in New York, and it's got that kind of you know, light, catchy mood. It's got the guitar at the beginning, plays that 3-note riff that draws you in, and then you've got the drums, and then that amazing clavinet with the wah-wah that plays under the vocals for the verse. And then you'll notice that in the chorus, Garth Hudson swaps to organ. It doesn't do it in the chorus. It just plays the thing. It's but it's really the clavinet that gives it great harmonies as well. Fantastic, and you know, but Garth Hudson is the star of this. 10 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. In fact, you know, one of the classic tracks on this album for sure. Jim.
Yeah, kind of hit single for the band. Went into the charts, and I mean, Levin Helm owns this on the vocal, doesn't he? Just amazing kind of performance, and it's one of those songs that translates well into the kind of live setting. It's one of the highlights of the last waltz was Levin playing the drums and singing this full tilt, and it's just amazing, just a great song. Not much to add to what you're saying. Very inventive to get the kind of sound. Obviously, you know, just one of the stellar tracks on the album, and in many kind of live performances, I guess, from the point of recording it onwards. Yeah, for me, 10 out of 10 as well. Superb song. Couldn't fault it. Nothing much more to add to that. One of the top songs on the album. Andrew.
Yeah, this is the teaser that I did, folks. I've put that link in the chat here if you want to go and have a look at it. It's a song that I've been playing with friends for 20 years, Jim. You know, love it. I agree with you. It's a fantastic song. It's another Levon classic. You know, it's the way he sings it. I love the live versions. There's another version that they do for the Ed Sullivan show that's on YouTube. Go and check it out. It's fantastic. No doubt about it. The star on this track is, well, there's a couple of stars on this track. Obviously, it's Levon's drums that Jim mentioned earlier, the wooden rim drums, which is really, really interesting because I did a book review too, folks, earlier this week on the channel by a woman called Sandra, and I forget her surname. Anyway, she does a wonderful, wonderful thing in her book. She goes and interviews other drummers to talk about Levon's drumming style, which is really, really good because plenty of other authors don't bother to do that. And one of the reasons why Levon has that great style, wooden rims, but also he doesn't hit the hi-hat where a lot of drummers will. He'll go back and he'll hit the snare again or the bass drum. So where you think he's going to go and hit the hi-hat, he won't. And again, it's that kind of off balance, that sway, that swing, Simon, that we talk about, you know, that's really, really important. And it went on to influence Charlie Watts as well. You know, Charlie Watts learnt something from Levon Helm as well. So it's really, really important, folks, that we, you know, talk about the fact that these guys are just phenomenal musicians as well as singers. The Rock Professor mentioned the clavinet, and we've got a photo there, but we also have to talk about the Lowry organ, don't we, Simon? You know, that Garth plays. And we've got a photo of that too, because I never really knew what the Lowry organ was, guys, until I did research for this show. Jim, I thought he'd be playing, it was a Hammond. I thought it was a Hammond, like everybody else was playing around this time. So I'm not going to pretend to be a keyboard expert, folks. So I'll you know. Yeah. If you're watching this on replay and going, oh, you man, what? I can't believe you didn't know that. Well, forgive me. I didn't. We got some pics to show too, folks, because we love doing that. Simon, you know, I have to give this a Brad score. I just think it's a phenomenal song, a radio song, a song that you've mentioned in your elaboration of the song. You know, it's just fantastic, you know, up on Cripple Creek. It's just fantastic. When I spring a leak, she mends me. I don't have to speak. She defends me. It's
Brilliant,
just,
isn't it?
well,
Yeah.
you know, that, I won't swear, but where the heck do you get this shit from? You know, it's just,
Well,
I love it.
Can I make a bold and wild claim that has no basis in fact? Good morning, Quentin James. How you doing?
Hey, Quentin.
That actually, I think some of it must be about being around Bob Dylan, mustn't it? That influence, that kind of, you know, that
Oh, 100%.
thing must be a sort of Dylan thing that kind of rubbed off, got filtered through Robbie Robertson, you know, through his own filter, and you know, it comes out different, but.
And something else too, but we'll save that for the conclusion. But 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. Okay. Look, the Rock Professor's mentioned something really, really important. Okay. So we might as well continue the conversation. So in Robbie Robertson's biography and in his film, they talk about how when they were doing the Basements recordings, Bob Dylan used to write on a typewriter. So he never used to write with a pen or paper, or, you know, so he'd type away. And so these words, so when you're typing, you got to pull words, you know, because he's a musician. So he's tapping along to the typewriter, Simon and Jim. So that's the key. That's the little trick that Robbie picked up on. So when you're typing, you got to pull words, you know, from somewhere, hopefully from a good place, not from the, where'd you pull that from? You know, you won't say that because it's a family show, but
Careful.
Yeah.
Eugene. Yes.
So I think, you're right, Simon. This idea of constructing words quickly, going for it on a typewriter, forced them to be great songwriters. But we'll talk about that in conclusion. Brad score.
Sandy Twos is the name of the woman whose book you reviewed. Sandra B. Twos. T-O-O-Z-E. So that's very cool.
Fantastic book.
And if you, just following up on your point about if you watch Don't Look Back, the Bob Dylan, the D.A. Pennebaker, Don't Look Back, he spends a load of his time sitting out and was typing on a typewriter. When he's whilst he's smoking and rattling off another Desolation Row or something. Extraordinary. And,
Hey, the Fonz.
Last of the summer wine. Steady now. The Fonz, thank you so much. Welcome. It's good to see you. So the last track on side one is a song called Whispering Pines, and I think this is an extraordinary song for me. It's a ballad on the theme of loneliness. Manuel wrote the melody and the vocal line, but so Robertson wrote the lyrics for it, and he has that kind of plaintive kind of melancholy in his voice. That's just it's a very, very sparse song. It's piano. It's basically a piano song, bit of acoustic in the background, bit of bass and a little bit of organ. So they're all playing on it. Don't think it has any drums on it, and it's just an extraordinary lonesome ballad. Sung by Richard Manuel. A man, quite a tortured man in his personal life, and and that extraordinary vocal that he pulls out of this is I find it a very affecting song. As the last track on side one, it's an interesting choice, but it's and then the vocals as well. The vocals repeat the same line in the third verse, and then sing together in that intertwining lead. But it's a high lonesome ballad. I give it a 10 out of 10. I think it's an extraordinary record and an extraordinary kind of insight into Richard Manuel's kind of vulnerable, delicate psyche. Really, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's kind of my feeling about it. Jim.
No,
I think you're right, Simon. Sorry, Jim. Sorry, I just want to back up what Simon said. Yep. I won't say any more. I promise.
I totally agree. I think this is probably my favorite song on the album, actually, because I can't listen to this without affecting me, really. It's a song that's capable of bringing you to tears, and I think it does. I think that kind of quality of, you can actually hear the kind of real emotion, some real pain in there. I think it's a faultless performance, and just one of the I don't think you could have a more beautiful, more plaintive song that kind of pulls at your heartstrings, really. So I'm going to give it a Brad score, because for me it's an absolutely standout track. It would sit anywhere, I mean, it's the kind of thing, if that was the only song on the record, you wouldn't feel cheated paying the price for it, because it's just an absolutely beautiful song, amazing. So, yeah, nothing more to add to that. It's just makes me cry. Andrew.
I just want to acknowledge a couple of comments in the chat, guys, before I give my discussion. So Arvin said that apparently the Lowry organs were giveaways in Canada in the 60s, and I've asked him, were they a cheap instrument then? And Holly said no, they weren't. So they were a quality instrument that was a giveaway on TV programs. Interesting. Thank you for that. This is one of the reasons why we love this show. Doing this show, because we all share. Jim and Rock Professor, look, I have to agree with you. There's a couple of reasons why I love this song. A good friend of mine passed away when I was in my early 20s. And this was one of the songs that they played at his funeral. And, you know, from that moment on, every time I hear this song, it's just a beautiful song. The contrast of this song from the previous song is just fantastic, isn't it? You know, the Rock Professor likes to talk about contrasts, and this is one of them. This is a great contrast. Richard's vocal on this has always resounded in my mind, Simon. You know, when I was a young fella, I was infatuated by Flannery O'Connor and her description of the Gothic South, how it was haunted, and Wise Blood, and lots of her other short stories. And this was a song when I was a young fellow. I thought, wow, this is a song that's a movie soundtrack, Jim, to one of those Gothic kind of lost, lonely kind of films. I don't know if Scorsese has used this in an album. In a soundtrack. We need to probably go and research that. I can't recall if he has. But Richard's vocals on this is just remarkable, and as the Rock Professor said, it was a bit of an insight into who Richard was as a man, because he went on and did some he was just a tortured soul. He drank a lot, chronic alcoholic, and music was certainly something that could stabilize him. I've given this to, like you, Jim, a Brad score. Brad score. I think it's remarkable. It's the third great song on this side, Simon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It is an extraordinary. You know, as Robertson said, that the hurt in his voice, there's a certain element of pain in there that you just didn't know if he was trying to reach the note or he was just a guy with a heart that had been hurt. So it's so fantastic end, soulful end to a great side.
Pick time.
I think pick time, end of side one. And interestingly, I think this is we'll talk about this as a sort of that actually. The vinyl is a very different experience to a CD copy of it. But
all right,
yes,
folks,
picks.
well,
Tea and picks.
Picks are brought to you.
Wait a minute.
Kindly, ladies and gentlemen, by this fine young man here, Clickbait, Brad Cook.
Look at those guns. Oh,
we can have a bit of fun. We can have a bit of fun on the show. All right, so back to work. Let's. So give me a second, folks. So I'll just fire the picks up in order so I don't forget. So obviously, here we go. This is Levon, obviously, and Robbie channeling his John Lennon look. Jim.
Yes.
What do you think they're doing? Are they writing a song?
Yeah, writing lyrics or looking at them, editing.
They're doing something. Or were they looking at the menu, Simon, for room service?
Could be.
Looking at the royalty statement.
All right.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
This is where Levon realizes that Rob is getting all the money.
Where's my residuals?
Yeah, it was at this point.
So this is the instrument that the Rock Professor mentioned that's on Cripple Creek and also Cripple Creek. It's the Hona
The melodica.
melodica. So Garth played that. It's like a reed instrument that you blow through and you play chords.
Yeah.
So this is that's the Lowry. That's Lowry.
Yeah, that's not going to be a cheap instrument, is it, by a distance?
No,
I did a quick Google search while you were talking about it, and there was a different one to that. It wasn't that, but a cheap one than that was seemed to be retailing in 1969 for nearly $1,000, $995.
okay, so that's
Which
not
is
cheap.
eight grand in today's money. So I don't
Yeah.
think that's a cheap organ by a country mile.
There's the other instrument that the rock professor was talking about, folks.
Clavinet.
The clavinet, and they used that with a wah, so we didn't need to find a wah for you, but Garth used that to a great advantage. And here we go. So this is Jim. This is one of the reasons why I fell in love with the band, because this is pre-internet, and this is the record in magazines at the time. You know, look at that. You know, there's definitely a vibe going on by these guys, completely in contrast to everybody else in 1969 and 1970, Simon.
There's not a tie-dye shirt in sight in that photograph, is there?
None.
None at all.
There they are
know
there.
Gathered round in a sort of that sort of not quite a circle, but and look at that tiny drum kit. It really is a tiny drum kit as well. Apparently it really was very, very small, but has a distinctive and interesting sound.
Again, very photogenic man.
Oh, it's a little more in keeping with 1969, possibly, but
I love Garth's tie in that one. Isn't that great?
you know, he does look like a funeral director, Garth, doesn't he? just dropped in from my last funeral.
So you Canadian ice hockey fans will be happy to see what Robbie's wearing there. Yeah. Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah. Never brings. There we are.
And that's that drum kit that the rock professor spoke about. Look at it. So he's got one tom, one snare, one bass drum, and one rack tom, Simon. That's it.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
It's
what Charlie Watts used.
It's what Max Weinberg uses now. Yeah. He hasn't got 94 drums. Oh yes, I mean, you don't need 94 drums to make it's all about the feel, all about how you play, not how many drums you've got, for sure.
Robbie and his mate Levon again. Here's Levon with his wooden drums that Jim mentioned. Look how low his crashes are. So obviously he's got that so that he can see what else is happening when he's playing. He's got to see what the other musicians are doing. Talks about that himself. He's got to see what the other guys are doing. It's not just hearing. He's got to see them. Interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's all about the eye contact, isn't it? It's about, because you're playing with musicians like that, and I think one of the great strengths of the band is clearly they've played together for thousands of hours, haven't they? If they've been playing since 1958, but that 10 years you've done a lot of gigs, a lot of sitting around, a lot of playing, and it's all about the eye contact. Where are you going? Oh, there's Garth with his accordion.
Legend, isn't he? There's Garth playing the Lowry.
Definitely not a cheap organ.
Cool.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Richard playing the Simon, what's he playing?
What is it? I
the
don't know.
Hohner,
Hohner piano, is it? An electric piano?
Oh,
What on the clavinet?
The clavinet.
What are you playing the clavinet? Is that it? Interesting.
I think so.
Because he's normally the piano player, isn't he? I would expect that to be an electric piano. But,
Oh, right.
There's Rick Danko,
Don't know what that
bass
bass
player.
is. Interesting bass.
Yeah. And there's a photo there. Very tight. Literally within like 2 feet of each other, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
The last
what I talk
waltz
about
proves
all the
it
time,
too.
isn't it? Andrew, it's what I talk about all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, all the bands we talk about, Led Zeppelin, we play on these big stages, and yet, they're all crowded. They're all around their drummer, aren't they? I mean, Page and John Paul Jones are like, literally around the drum rise. They're kind of, playing off each other and things. It's, I think it's only later that people started spreading out.
That's Richard, guys.
Yeah.
Tragic story. And the last one is, that's the slide trumpet that Garth plays on the night they drove all Dixie down. So that's a pick. Thank you, Mr. Wikipedia, for that.
Nice.
I think
Amazing, yeah.
I think from my research, because he was quite a clever musician, I think he basically learnt that straight away from what I've picked up. I can't confirm it, but if anybody's watching on replay, or if Arvin or anyone else here in the chat knows, if Garth had a history of playing the slide trumpet, but I couldn't find anything. So I'm assuming that maybe it was just, I don't know. It's such an obscure instrument. Maybe he was just playing it.
Well, I think I read somewhere that they used to, they used to go to this kind of, these junk shops or things, which is where Levon got the drumming thing, and pick up kind of, Garth would pick up instruments, weird instruments from these things,
yeah.
And,
so that's probably, yeah.
So I think that's where it comes from, and I think that's where they, where Gis picked it up, and if he's clearly innately a great musician, he can get a song out of it, get a sound out of it, straight away, without being a wizard at it, and then they can fit it in. Yeah, cool,
All right.
fantastic picks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. We love looking at the picks, don't we? It's always a good thing. Good album turner. Right, Rock Professor.
So, side 2, and I think, as I said earlier, I think it's really important that that thing about, with an album, clearly you have to get up, go over to the record player, turn it over, and play the other side. And I think if you've had a song like, if you've ended it with a song like Whispering Pines, that kind of breather that you get, emotionally, physically, to go over, turn it over and put it on, I think is really important. I think that listen to this on CD, and I noticed it on Spotify, that you belt with 2 seconds to spare between, that Whispering Pines and then the first track. What is the first track on side 2? Jemima Surrender. 2 seconds isn't long enough, really, and I think it does neither song justice by having 2 seconds between. To be honest, I think it's much better that you have that kind of minute where you get up, turn it over, put it on the other side. That gap that you need, I think, serves both songs well. Myself, and that 2 second gap doesn't do it. Because you need time to breathe after the emotional impact of Whispering Pines, and I think if you're just going to go straight into this kind of much more kind of upbeat song, that it kind of spoils it a bit. But so I would recommend the playing the album version of it, all stopping for a minute after thing, just so you can catch your breath. So Jemima Surrenders is the first track on side 2. I think it's a song written by Levon Helm and Robbie Robertson, and so Levon sings it, and plays guitar on it. So and Richard Manuel plays drums. So again, they're swapping around the instruments and things. And they clearly, and John Simon plays the tuba on it. It's got that. You know, again, it's got that kind of. It's got, for the first time, it's got like a guitar riff at the beginning as an intro thing, which is definitely not what's happened before. None of the other songs before have really had a great deal of guitar, but this has more guitar on it, and you know, the little things that Robbie Robertson plays. And I think that this kind of economical guitar playing has been really influential with the, oh look, it's the dog. It's the 5150 dog. We've got a 5150 dog. See? Pepper, how you doing? Far too well, obviously.
Thank you, guys.
Oh,
Thank you for doing a shout out to my dog.
yeah, it's a cool dog. Andrew's
Sorry. Sorry.
That's right. No, it's fine.
I've distracted you.
That's fine. Distract away. It's I get my guitar. So as I say, guitar is a bit more prominent on this track for the first time. There's some very nice economical guitar playing with riffs, little bits and pieces. Great vocals, barrel house piano as well. That kind of much more kind of barrel house piano that Richard Manuel plays. I think it's Richard Manuel. Or Garth Hudson's playing it, actually, not something similar to Rag Mama Rag. Great harmony singing, and again that tuba gives that extra bottom to it in a sort of in a unique way that only a tuba can. It's been described as a funky country. I don't know if that really is a thing, but I give this 8 out of 10. Never a skip. Excellent opening to side two. As I say, that kind of upbeat, pretty jaunty thing. And as with the change of, you know, with the guitar and stuff, 8 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. Jim.
Yeah, I think your comments. I hadn't thought about it, but your comments about the I do have a lot of LPs, and I do think that process of stopping and turning over is a really good thing. And you know, I think your point there really about having a little bit of a gap between side one and side two. I think on one of Tom Petty's CDs, he actually says on, you know, this is the end of side one. You know, if this was a record, you'd be turning it over, kind of thing. So, you know, I think that's a really good, a good point. Next break, yeah. So, you know, one of the things I find this, I don't quite get this, but I'd read a thing really that the band were quite influenced by Curtis Mayfield, and I don't think it was just in terms of the sound, but I think just that kind of style of guitar playing, that you're not trying to play a big solo, you're just trying to link things and play differently and express it in a different way. So they'd obviously were picking up on a huge amount of kind of influences, and yeah, that kind of description of funky country. Yeah, I don't know, but the whole thing about the band, I think, is you've got this kind of stew of music that's bringing in all these kind of different influences, and they're open to them all. You know, it's not like they're kind of locked in. And at the time, you know, I guess if we're referring back to 1969, a lot of the emphasis was on virtuosity, wasn't it? It was about kind of displaying kind of great solo stuff and power, and and you know, I think one of the resulting factors of that was that the kind of songs kind of slightly got lost because they became extended into long jams and stuff. I think what you've got here in the band is you've got the song is king, and it's kind of defined, and you know, everyone plays their part. So you know, the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts, rather than, oh, you know, there's a fantastic solo on this and stuff. But yeah, there's some neat instrumental playing from everyone, but it never overpowers the song. I mean, I think the song's about somebody trying to I mean, maybe woo's the wrong word, I think, but definitely trying to attract the attention of a female, and maybe not making terribly good job of it, really. I suppose that's probably as close as I'm going to get to commenting on that. But, you know, I think it's fine. 8 out of 10 for me. I think it's between a 7 and an 8 out of 10. Yeah. Thank you.
Between, Jim, between 7 and 8. Is that 7.5? Or am I making it up?
No, just go for 7.5 then. Yeah, I'll go again. I'll be tricky.
Oh dear, Andrew.
Country twang rocker, isn't it? I think they kind of got it a little bit right, didn't they, with the description? I'm glad the rock professor said it's the first guitar solo on the album. You know, wow. Side 2 and you're getting a guitar solo. Holy shit. According to Mr. Wikipedia, Levon is playing rhythm guitar, Simon, and Richard's on the drums on this track. So,
okay, fair enough. Yeah,
Mr. Wikipedia is never wrong, apparently. And I just love Robbie's cool little lead solo. Jim is right on the money with Curtis Mayfield being an influence, definitely. And I have to say, from what I understand from reading a little bit about Robbie over the years, he was very, very mindful because he could rock out. This is 69. You know, he could pull out and, you know, he could rock that guitar if he wanted. He could give Clapton, they could, you know, give each other a run for the money, but he chose not to. As Jim said, you know, he was playing the guitar for the song, which is the credit that band did, didn't they? So good point, Jim. Thank you for echoing that again. In contrast to everything else that was happening at the time. So, Simon, you can see why this album and the one before it was so influential, you know, because they just sounded so different. I've given this a 9 out of 10 too. Never a skip, Jim.
No, absolutely not. It's cool, isn't it? And also shows that they're thinking about the programming, you know, because they, you know, got the as you say, the first guitar solo and all that, you know, that appears on the first track on side 2, you know, so you have you know, you have some of the same instruments, but then you've got this contrast with slightly more, you know, guitar and things to electric guitar as well. Anyway, cool. So the second track is Rocking Chair, which is sung by Richard Manuel again. It's about a retired sailor who won't set sail anymore. So it's about, you know, staying at home. It's about interesting, isn't it, that quite a few of these songs are about about sort of, you know, kind of getting old and stuff, and you know, and yet these guys are in their mid-20s kind of thing, and they're about to write these sorts of songs. It's amazing to me. You know, you could put yourself in that position. So as I say, you know, it's a kind of, for me, it's acoustic, mandolin, accordion, you know, great vocals as well. The vocal, I love the vocals, the fact they go back and forth and intertwine and things. Is you know, it's a unique way of singing, isn't it? That you know, it doesn't quite fit the sort of completely the norms that you might put together. But it, yes, Holly, yes, but it, you know, it fits what this band do. It fits it beautifully, the way, you know, the way they intertwine together. It's fantastic. It's the sound of, you know, for me, the sound of loss of freedom, adventure, you know, and going forth on the voyage kind of thing. You're no longer doing that, and you're sitting in your rocking chair and taking it easy. 8 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Jim.
Yeah. So a song about the weariness of old age. So getting
too close to home.
Comfort for me, I think, and maybe you, Simon. So you know, as you kind of reflect on your life, I mean, I think we've all been a bit at sea in our lives, haven't we, with no direction and just drifting around. So you know, there's that bit of kind of reflection here. Yeah, I think this was something distinct in the mid to late 60s. There was the kind of thing, this was something the band challenged, that kind of viewpoint of don't trust anyone over 30, you know.
Okay.
It was said at the time, you know, you can't trust anyone over, and it was about this kind of young generation, and you know, don't buy into all this stuff. And I think on Big Pink, if you open up the gatefold on that, you've got the whole family there. they said they didn't have that belief. They believed in family and people of different ages, and the importance of that. So they were kind of like challenging the whole that kind of whole idea that youth is the only thing. So I think this song brings in a lot of the kind of brings in that kind of attitude, and challenges some of that kind of that thinking of the 60s. And Robbie Robertson said, young people are interesting, but so are old people. There's a lot to learn, and you need to kind of look at all stages of life. And I think as somebody who's writing songs, you're not just writing them in a narrow thing. That was where the whole Dylan thing came in. It's not just about boy meets girl, I want to hold your hand, all that stuff. There's a lot more to life than teenage romance or whatever. So for me, definitely 8 out of 10. Good song, different song.
Mr. Walton.
I sorry for the silence. I don't want to butt into anybody. So it's Sorry, Jim. I don't want to get sacked if I cut you off, mate. Sorry. Thank you for prompting me, Simon. Otherwise, I might fall asleep. I don't want to fall asleep on the show either.
That would be embarrassing. Yes.
Okay. Maybe I'm in that fucking rocking chair.
Fortunately, we're an hour and 40 minutes in before he's sworn.
All right.
But yes.
Yeah. Look, a hugely influential song, and as Jim said, it was the subject that Robbie was writing about was everybody and everything. That's what he was interested in, and this song influenced Steve Earle, Ryan Adams. They speak about this song fondly. I never really liked this song, to be fair. I like the mandolin. I love the way that the mandolin comes in and the way that it's included with the acoustic guitar. Sounds great from that perspective. And again, we've got Richard on vocals, but it's a song that deserves its place on the album. Nothing really going on here for me, Simon and Jim, other than an 8 out of 10. Never a skip, Simon.
I think that's fair. I think there's quite a contrast to the previous previous song, and something in contrast to the next one we're talking about. And I think that, when you're programming an album, that's part of how the programming works, doesn't it? And I think that this is the right place to put this sort of song, and fairly simple, fairly. And
Ellen kind of agrees with us too. She's given it 8.5 out of 10. So we're all on the money there.
Yeah. So the third track is Look Out Cleveland, which I'm going to repeat. Holly, it's called Look Out Cleveland. Okay, have you got that? Like I said, joshing around in the chat. I'm joining in. So this is the third track. This is a much more of a kind of what's been described as a kind of urban blues song by much more than the kind of country stuff that has been referenced before. So there's a bit of a change of emphasis here. Definitely much more of a barroom stomp. That driven guitar at the beginning, really, really great sound of just a little bit, break up on the amp just to give it some grit, which is I think Robbie Robertson, first time he's done that on this record. So definite change of sound, and that kind of rock and roll piano playing as well, barroom piano playing. You've got that great kind of swing and roll, as Charlie Watts used to say, or Keith Richards used to say, it's all about the roll, not about the rock, and this is all about the roll kind of thing. Two singing voices, great. It's as I say, it's just a much more of an up-tempo rock and roll type song, really, more of a rock song than we've had previously. Quite a lot of guitar playing riffs and things, and with some organ. I think I gave this 8 out of 10. Never a skip. A great contrast to the previous track, and different sounds, different textures going on. Great stuff, Jim.
Yeah, Another good kind of rock track, and this one really, they played this live quite a bit, and kind of built for that kind of performance and stuff. And yeah, it's got some good momentum to it, and yeah, it does roll and it rocks, and it does what it says on the tin. Really, I think the lyrics are quite good. I think it would be. I think for me, a kind of 8 out of 10. I think one of the things about these records is, I think when you listen to the band's studio albums, then you hear the live performances. You can hear songs going to a different place when
Good
they're
point.
played live. They obviously had a different approach for the studio songs, like a lot of people do. But in the live setting, the guitar parts would come out more, and the instrumental parts would be given a bit more emphasis.
Yep.
And just they would take it into a slightly different place. And they've got a lot of live history to build on. They've been in front of audiences with the Hawks. They know how they needed to play. They didn't need to do that on a record. Keep the song tight, and bring out the more the hotter versions when they played the songs live. So for me, yeah, I'd kind of fall in line with Simon there. 8 out of 10. Good upbeat number. Fits well on the album. Andrew.
Cool. Can I interrupt you now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Good to see that I'm consistently interrupting. Look, I agree with you. It's certainly the song that will give them the opportunity to rock out. It's a cool little rocker. I'm going to disagree with Simon though. I don't know if it's a Chicago or urban blues definition. Is that something that they said it was, Simon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Because I would have thought that this would have been
against the grain. You are. I am the rock professor. I'm always right.
Okay. Because I could see this being in a honky tonk, quite well, fitting into a honky tonk. So I think Holly made the thing here where Appalachians meet the Ozarks or something like that. So. Yeah. Oh, look, who cares? It's just a label, isn't it? It's a rock and roller. It's a blues kind of number. I do agree with Jim, though. Again, I've got to say this. It's the track that's given them the opportunity to rock out live. That's the note I've got here. Robbie just, again, doesn't he, Jim and Simon, just adds the right amount of guitar on this live. Sorry, not live, on the record. And something's just come to my mind, Jim. You said at the introduction, the first track leaves you wanting more.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a Robbie thing, because when you listen to this track, I'm just thinking out aloud. When you hear the guitar, it's like you want to hear more. And that's not a bad thing. I've given this 9 out of 10. Never a skip though, Jim. Never a skip, Simon.
No. Just to go at Lightning Strikes. Good morning, Lightning Strikes. He's in the UK somewhere, like me and Jim. So good morning to you. Nice to see you. I've not seen your name before, so welcome. He says that the title "Rocking Chair" comes from an old Hoagie Carmichael song, an old songwriter's trick taking a pre-existing title. Excellent point. Thank you for that. That's very cool. So I thought I'd pick that out. And yes, and welcome, Lightning Strikes.
Hit that subscribe button, Lightning Strikes, if you haven't, and I'll promise I'll subscribe back to you so you don't miss any more of these cool streams that we do.
So anyway, so welcome to you, Lightning Strikes. Track 4 is Jawbone, which is it's kind of it's a bit of an oddity, this song, isn't it? It's got a 6/4 time signature. And I have to confess, I'm not entirely certain what a 6/4 time signature is, but I read it, therefore it must be true. Lots of people comment on that, so it's not entirely certain what it means. But again, it's back to a bit more of the sort of piano guitar play, and you've got quite a lot of what I picked out of this was quite a lot of the instruments play the riffs in unison. So you've got a guitar and bass and the guitar and I think which is interesting is kind of and you've got that intertwining of the instruments. They're playing very much the same thing together to create kind of multi-instrumental textures, which I think is interesting. I think that that I like it goes at about a minute. It goes down to sort of half time thing, and then goes back up to the normal tempo. But again, later on, you've got guitar, bass, and organ, and the piano all kind of playing the same thing. Which is that kind of, that's how tight they are, because they could just drop into that, and create a groove from all the instruments playing together. And this also has a guitar solo on it as well. Very economical, to the point guitar solo from Robbie Robertson, but nevertheless a guitar solo. A bit of a rarity on this record, but yeah, again, quite a contrast to the previous track. I gave this 8 out of 10. Never a skip. Jim.
Hey, Tim.
Yep. I think it might be a Telecaster on that guitar solo as well. I meant to mention actually on one of the other tracks there, I think it was Jemima Surrender, there's a line in it about "I'll bring my Fender and play all night," isn't there?
Yeah.
So I forgot that.
Yes, Jim. Yes, careful with that axe, Eugene.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Baby.
So, yeah. Well, yeah, maybe shouldn't have gone into that. I've part of
That's
the
fine.
moment, yeah. So yeah, this is kind of isn't that sort of tight but loose feel, isn't it? A bit woozy and then kind of nips back, and there's this kind of an underpinning tightness to the track as well. So yeah, 8 out of 10 from me. It's a good track. It's in that position where it's just building up to a bit of a finale for the album, I think. But yeah, nothing wrong with it. Over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. The keyboards are pretty cool on this, and I like the way that the chords on the keyboards are backed up by Danko's bass. That's pretty cool. The way that Danko's bit of a star here with his bass. An underrated bass player, Jim. In the history of music, Danko is underrated. But you go and watch The Last Waltz, and he stands out, doesn't he, as a musician on that film? Phenomenal, his contribution. You and Simon mentioned at that 2:53-minute mark that cool little guitar solo going on by Robbie. I agree. I think it's a Telecaster. It's not his Casino. It's not that Epiphone that he's playing. It's definitely got to be Italian. It's not a Strat. So I think you're on the money there. I agree with you too. I've given this an 8 out of 10 as well. Never a skip though, Jim and Simon. It's building up for something really good. Rock Professor.
Lightning Strike says 10 out of 10 for every track for a flawless album.
I can see why. I can see what. We're not going to argue with you.
It's a classic album, Lightning Strikes. That's one of the reasons why I chose it. Yes, interesting. So the fifth track is on this side is "Unfaithful Servant," which is a song written by Robbie Robertson. It's quite an unusual song, this, and it's not the weakest song on the album for sure, but it is probably, it has that kind of odd descending chord progression that has been described by people better than me as being more like jazz than some of the band's other, the other stuff, which is more country, folk, and rock. And it's Ralph Gleason stated this: the song sounds like it could have been written by jazz pianist Bill Evans. So it's so it has a kind of different vibe to it than previous tracks, and kind of stands out as that as a different thing. It's Garth Hudson playing as soprano sax on it, and John Simon on doing the tuba, and it gives you that kind of, that tuba and sax thing gives you that. It's not, as I said earlier, it's not about the stack sound. It's more like a sort of New Orleans, almost kind of funeral march thing, isn't it? Where they kind of march through the thing with tubas and stuff, and drum kind of going kind of thing. That I got that much more that New Orleans kind of jazz brass vibe out of it than than sort of Stax, that kind of upbeat brass stuff. I think. I think I love the harmony singing on it. I think it's got great harmony singing on it. Again, it's basically an acoustic and piano based song, and it's got an acoustic guitar solo as well. So I think Roy Robertson was moved to play a solo on it because of where it was, and followed by a sax solo. So it's got 2 solos on it, which is quite amazing for this record. It's first time we've had 2 solos, and that kind of muted sax solo, kind of bluesy, smoky sax solo. And as I've said, the guitar and the piano fit together like 2 halves of the same instrument. They're very good at that kind of melding those 2 instruments together on this track. I gave this again an 8 out of 10. Never a skip. Wait for it, Mr. Walton. 8.
Okay.
Yes, 8 out of 10 is a perfectly respectable score. Look, I've got more defensive now. Jim, get me out of it.
I don't know if I'm going to help you here, Simon. I think for me, I think this
Should we
is.
Just get rid of him now, Jim? We just get rid of him now.
No, I love this song. I absolutely love this song, and I think it's a Stone classic. So I'm in the Brad Scott department here. I do think, though, to be fair, this is a song that has that kind of evolved a bit, because when they took it into the live setting, Robbie plays an electric guitar solo on it. It's one that I love. The Rock of Ages album, or The Last Waltz. And it's a bit of a showstopper in that sense, because the guitar kind of just lifts the song. But also, I think the band worked before the Rock of Ages live shows with Alan Toussaint, and he did all the horn arrangements for some of for the Rock of Ages shows that I think latterly were then used again in The Last Waltz. And I think those horn arrangements lift this song kind of even higher. But for me, it's one of my favorites from the album, and I'm gonna go out with a Brad score on it. I just love it, and the singing, the lyrics, the story. Rick Danko, what a performance vocally, perfect stuff. So there you go. Over to Andrew.
Jim, thank you for bringing a bit of credibility back to our channel. Because I'm going to back you up, because this song for me is up there with Dixie as far as telling a story and the musicianship. I've got a note here. Danko sings majestically on this, and I wanted to sing like this when I first heard this, and I still do. If I could sing like Rick Danko on this track, I reckon half your problems in the world will be over. It's just a wonderful track. And thank you, both my co-hosts, for pointing out about the acoustic guitar solo. It's just incredible. It's just an incredible solo played on his, I'm assuming, on his Martin. And then Jim's obviously given for you folks a clue that there are other versions out there for you to go and check if you want, that can add contrast to this. That acoustic guitar solo, though, in my opinion, Simon and Jim's one of the best acoustic solos on record. It's just a remarkable piece of musicianship. I haven't quite given this Brad score, Jim. I've given that a 10 out of 10. You can come back.
Oh dear! No. Look, I need to. So perhaps I'll revise up. And in light of my co-host persuasive scores.
Yeah, Holly's giving it a 10.
Yes, Lightning Strike's giving it a 10. Yes, clearly I'm in the minority.
Lightning Strikes has given it 100%.
Yeah. Damn. So I'm in a minority of 1. Oh dear. Okay. Okay. 10 out of 10. I'm persuaded.
Reappraisal.
Reappraisal. Done the role in a reappraisal. You've talked me into it, team. Well done. So the last track is
bullies, Jim. You're a bully.
Yeah. Online bullying in action.
Oh my lord!
I don't think so. Look at the way they hounded that poor old man. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I thought I was being quite gentle, really, to be
Yeah,
quite
no. Gently pointing out the error of my ways, Jim. Quite right. Yes. 10 out of 10 for your managerial style, really. It's yeah, Simon.
Soft on the people, hard on the issues, Simon.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Simon, you're just wrong. Face it. Oh dear. Brilliant. Anyway, so the last track on that side too is King Harvest Has Surely Come. Credited to Robbie Robertson, although Levon claimed that King Harvest was a group effort. It's sung in the first person from the point of view of a poverty-stricken farmer who, with increasing desperation, details the misfortune which has befallen him. There was no rain and his crops died, his barn burnt down, and it's a proper country song, isn't it? And he ends up on Skid Row. So I think it's to me this is a great song. This is the band's song of blasted country hopes, suggesting that it's a dark and eerie earnestness to it also. So it's kind of apparently the song structure is unusual. The verses sung by pianist Richard Manuel are energetic, while the choruses sung by Manuel and Richard Helm are more subdued in contrast to the typical song structure. This change possibly reflects the desperate, if unsure, hope the protagonist holds in the union he's joined. So this is a fantastic song. It's electric guitar and organ play, great vocals, great singing. It's a song perfectly set up for Richard Manuel, isn't it? That plaintive, lonesome voice that he's got, that perfectly fits the subject matter of this song of the downtrodden farmer and things. And some great lead lines from Robbie Robertson. I think just finally letting go a little bit, and that it evokes that kind of autumnal, end of the season, doesn't it? Harvest festival and things, and with the fairground, especially with the organ and things, slightly eerie, slightly sort of, which is fantastic. So I think mood wise, it really sets the roof. Yeah, and you're right. He has that mandolin, that ding 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 on his that he plays on his guitar, lightning strikes. Yeah, that's fantastic, isn't it? As a thing, very difficult to do. That really fast picking back and forth on single strings. So 10 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Fantastic end to a fantastic record. Jim.
Yeah, can't disagree. Great lyrics. A song about something again in time, people struggling. There's something that matters there. A song for the people. It's not about movie stars. It's down to earth. I just think the lyrics are just incredible. Dry summer, then comes fall, which I depend on most of all. Hey, rainmaker, can't you hear my call? Please let these crops grow tall. This is just really, really solid stuff. And, the kind of fragility of kind of life, really, you're hoping the whole band going up in smoke, the catalogue of challenges that are faced by the kind of farmer and everything. And it's just that kind of rhythm, the playing has got a lot of kind of restraint and containment in it. You feel like it's just going to uncoil. It's just an absolutely superb ending to the record, a real statement of we're different, we're singing about different things, we're playing songs in different ways, and we stand out with that. So 10 out of 10 for me. Andrew.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Simon, and thank you, folks in the chat, because I don't want to be controversial with my comments here, but I'm going to be honest and upfront with you, if you allow me. King Harvest is another incredible song. The electric guitar in one ear and the keys in the other, if you're listening on headphones, is just a remarkable thing. We listen to to these tracks in a lot of ways, Jim. We could be listening to a CD or a record or our AirPods. I just wanted to point that out, though, that the production of this album is just a wonderful thing in itself as well. It's bliss to have that electric guitar, because it's been a while since we've had it, Simon and Jim, so we get it on this last track. And again, you guys have pointed out about the song content, and it was a theme that I picked up on early on. You know, we mentioned early in our introduction to the album that one of the key things that we loved about this album, was the songs, what they were singing about. And this song, again, Jim and Simon, proves, and people in the chat, proves once again that North Americans have this gift, this wonderful gift of being able to write and sing songs about the ordinary lives of ordinary people. It's a wonderful gift they have, and we see it today with a young guy called Oliver Anthony. Today, you know, he's getting marginalised by some people, but he's just singing about the same thing these guys were singing about 30, 40, 50 years ago, Jim, about the ordinary lives of ordinary farmers scraping a living together. Levon Helm did a bluegrass album about farmers in 2010 or something like that, you know, singing about the same thing, about that ordinary life of just getting up in the morning and trying to work to provide just bread for your family. Now you've got a young guy today talking about the same thing, about people trying to do the same thing that they were doing for years and years and years, with interest rates and the dollar and inflation and all that. I love the way that Americans can do that. It's a great gift that they have, Simon. It's a great gift. You know, Bob Dylan had it, still got it. Robbie Robertson and these guys managed to do that. This track's a masterpiece. The album's a masterpiece. I've given this a Brad score.
Excellent. Yes, and why not? Absolutely, it's worthy of it, isn't it? It's an amazing track to conclude, and yeah, and that kind of yes.
I don't see. Can I just interrupt, Simon? I'm sorry. I don't see how singing about people struggling and trying to earn a living and feed their family can get counselled. You know, rock and roll's Jim they've been singing about these things for 50 years.
Well, country music is all about the downtrodden man, woman, child, whatever, isn't it? It absolutely is. Although it's yes.
But also about the joys and grabbing your first kiss and getting drunk as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lightning strikes. But it's a good point about how Oliver Anthony references Richmond, as does the night they drove Old Dixie down.
Yes.
So it's a little rich men north of Richmond. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you know, we've got to keep singing songs about daily lives. When we stop singing songs and writing songs about daily lives, what are we singing about, Simon? Rubbish.
Yeah. Protest songs. You know, it's interesting
Junk.
that Oliver Anthony's about, you know, a protest song written and sung on a single acoustic guitar and just sung by somebody, you know, and and where does that come from? I wonder. I've been lots of places, but you know, Woody Guthrie, Bob Dylan, you know, it's just in the long line tradition, isn't it? You know.
Turned down $8 million record deal because he didn't want to sell out, Simon.
No. Let's hope he made enough out of his YouTube and other stuff too. So it's not really that. Doesn't mean that much to him as a thing. But so yeah, I've got a bit of a conclusion, guys, about this record. I mean, I think that you know, it's interesting, as I've made this point already, that this is a record steeped in, you know, the history of America, made mostly by Canadians. You know, pretty much all the songs written by a Canadian. So is it, and that kind of outsider thing, you know, it's is an interesting, you know, the fact that you're one step away gives you the opportunity to observe it rather than be a part of it in a way. You know, that kind of just being outside of it a bit, and I think that's important. And I think that this is called a band, and it's about how the way that they work together, where they play together, and the way that they think. I read that it's a good quote. Is that the album dispels all the assumptions we carry about how bands are supposed to work. The songwriter is all powerful. The rhythm section is a supporting cast. Hierarchies are inevitable. On this record, the band instead operates on a paradigm which power comes from the bottom up, and authority is dispersed evenly amongst its compatriots. And I think that was very attractive to Clapton, George Harrison, lots of other people. That all of the players in the band can be on an equal footing. And with the drummer singing, clearly that takes it up. And so I think that's what makes one of the things that makes this album very special and unique and different. And as I said at the beginning, is in many ways for me the start of Americana, and where Americana comes from. That amalgamation of things that they managed to do on this record: folk, country, bit of bluegrass, bit of rock and roll. But all those things come together. So, and it's absolute classic for me. Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't have a lot to add to that. I think it's one of those pivotal records. Pivotal's the word I think I'd use. It's about kind of changing from kind of one order to another. And I think there was this story about Eric Clapton visiting, really, when he was in the height of his psychedelic pomp, with his red trousers and his permed hair. And I just wonder what he would have looked like alongside these guys, dressed, as funeral directors. So the juxtaposition of the two worlds. And he certainly, I think he was just at that point where he was wanting to kind of go in a different direction. And he kind of stepped away from all the Cream stuff, which in some ways was a shame. I think Robbie Robertson said that, he heard the band and he wanted to quit Cream, and Robbie Robertson said, well, I don't know what I felt about that, because I like Cream. So we like that stuff as well. It's both can exist.
Yeah.
But this was certainly the blueprint for a lot of people going forward, not just the obvious ones. I think in this country, bands like people like Nick Lowe and Graham Parker and the Rumour were all influenced. Like, there was loads of musicians that were influenced by the band for many years afterwards, and probably still to this day. So that's the word. Pivotal seems to be important there, and a legacy created by some music that's kind of that's gone beyond its own time and the lives of its writers. Because as you say, I think it's only Garth that's left alive now, so they're all gone, and we started with that, with the shout outs, around Bernie going. I think we're in this next 10 years, this is we're going to see a lot of the kind of musicians that have produced a lot of the music that we've really loved over the years leaving us. And it's not going to be too easy to have to see that. But it's great that, if you've lived your life and you've produced this kind of music, that it does live on. What a wonderful thing that is.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jim. Brooks, good to see you, bro. It's been a long time. Thank you for jumping on. Look, I just want to echo what you guys have said in my conclusion, if that's okay. So, again, I mean, no disrespect to our American friends, but I think sometimes other people need to present Americans their music back to them. We got that with the British guys, Jim. We got it with Clapton and the British Electric Blues guys, the Rolling Stones, coming back to America saying, hey, this is what we've done with your blues music. And they went, holy shit. Wow. And they jumped back on it, and then they created something else. You had the Allman Brothers, as an example, go and create Southern rock as a vehicle and a reflection of this British Electric Blues. I think the Canadians, Simon, they came down and they said to the Americans, this is what you guys need to do with country and rock and roll.
Yeah.
This is what you guys need to do. And you know, the Americans went, yeah. When their first two albums and Lightning Strikes is talking about stage fright, another, went holy cow, this is what we've got to do, and they did it. Simon and Jim, the Americans said, okay.
Oh
So,
yeah.
So sometimes you have to not see your own reflection all the time, and think yeah, I'm cool. You need someone else to actually come in and say, hey, bite this pie. Great album, Simon and Jim. As I said to you guys in the introduction, it's an album that had a huge influence on me, Jim. Huge influence. And then when I started reading and then picking up what other people were saying about this album, like Clapton, for example, talking about Big Pink, in the early 1990s, it's like, oh, okay, I'm onto it, Simon. Wow.
I'm on it.
Yeah, I don't know if you felt like that too, Jim. Did you wow, I'm making these connections. It's so easy now for people to jump on YouTube and be said, hey, buy this, buy that, and do this. I don't know, Jim, did you feel like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of music connects, isn't it? And then finding those connections and being influenced by people and getting advice, I think that's all part of it. I think that it's a journey, isn't it, that we're all on, and we learn and we pick up on stuff, and it's great. So yeah, I mean, I think if you stay in a very narrow zone, like I just like this music, you're going to lose out. You've got to stay a little bit open and follow the paths really, and yeah, all that influence stuff. That's how music grows. I think is people produce something, somebody else picks up on it, somebody adds something to it. Yeah, just as you described. Great stuff.
Thank you. Look, we've been on air, folks, for 2 hours and 60 minutes or so.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a long show, folks, and we're going to leave you. And thank you, Lightning Strikes, with this wonderful comment. Yes, Robbie's death had we spoke about it here on the show. And the Rock Professor picked this album because Robbie, huge influence on all the music that we love. So we dedicate this show to the memory of Bernie and also, obviously, Robbie Robertson. Do you want to do a shout out, Simon, to
I'll do a shout out.
Everybody?
Yeah.
And we'll let Jim go and have breakfast.
Oh, am I not allowed breakfast? I'm clearly not allowed to go for breakfast, unlike you, Jim. It's I put something in that. If you want, there's a fantastic guy called Peter Santanello who makes fantastic documentaries about just handheld camera stuff about America, with various bits of America. He's done one called Appalachia's Gentrification. But they're really good. They're really interesting. He goes and talks to people and stuff and gets a real grassroots kind of thing. He's done one about Appalachian miners and stuff. And they're all really good. So if you're into that, check them out because they're really good. But, so Lightning Strikes, thank you so much. Good to meet you, and thank you for all your great comments. If you ever want to come on and do an album, just message one of us, Andrew, me, Jim, anybody. And, be more than happy to welcome you on, to do what we've just done today.
If Lightning Strikes wants to come on and be a guest host for when we do the third band album, Stage
Fright, or
Stage Fright.
Music for the Big Pink or whatever, that would be fantastic. Just throwing it out there. We're a, community channel, and, we like it when members of the community come on, choose their albums and stuff. So
my email is on the it's on the website here. It's on YouTube. Lightning Strikes, if you want to flick me an email. Yeah,
cool. So Holly, Ellen, thank you so much. Gret Zeppelin, Lightning Strikes, again, thank you. Arvin, Brooks Reed, nice to see you, Brooks. Who else have we had today? Arvin, Brooks, Holly. I've had the gang in today. Ellen. Gret Zeppelin was around, wasn't he, as well? Tim Thomas, morning, Tim. Hope you're well. Nice to see you. Sorry, guys, it's scrolling back up through the names. It's the 5150 show. And so Phil Byers as well. Thank you, Phil. Good to see you as
Phil.
well. Channel member. Phil. The Fonz as well. Cool name. Nice. So I think Drops Family Garden as well. Drops, I hope you're all right.
Circle that date, the 17th of September.
Don't even know what he's talking about, but I thought he was talking about the guy from yesterday. But anyway,
No, that's
anyway,
when Google's going to blow up.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. So thanks to everyone who joined. I hope I got you all. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week for something else. Take care. Have a good one. I'm on holiday.
Brad will be back.
Brad will be back.
Brad's pick. Make sure you hit the notification button, and once we work out what album we're going to do, he might palm it off to me to make the pick. So one of us will pick it.
And before we go, special thanks, Jim. Thank you so much for coming on and something. It's fantastic to have you on.
Thank you, Jim.
Again, brilliant. Let's keep conversing about those guitars, Jim. Okay.
Yeah.
But don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Take it away, boss man. Take care, all. See you next week.